everybody, so we're back talking some more House of the Dragon on the channel with the 10th episode. We've reached the finale for Season 1, and all around, I've quite enjoyed delving back into the world of Game of Thrones with this prequel. I think all around, the season's been pretty great. And also, on a side tangent, today is my birthday, so it was also really cool that the finale for Season 1 also followed upon the same day that I turned 29. Last week, it was all about Team Green, them taking the throne and crowning Aegon as king, so it's only fitting that this episode is entirely about Team Black and them at Dragonstone. This definitely is an episode that's going to ruffle some feathers in various different ways, especially if you're a big fan of the books and some of the things that they change in this. I'm okay with it for the most part, but once we get to those moments as I'm talking about the episode, I will share some of my gripes there. After Rhaenys had that amazing moment at the end of last week where she escapes on Melees, we do see her make it to Dragonstone and informing everyone of all the impending threats because Viserys is now dead, they've crowned Aegon in her place, and they're also coming for her. So it's a lot of impending danger on the horizon, possibly. So I kind of was on Daemon's side because I brought up last week, why didn't she just burn them all while she was there, and we don't have to worry about this impending war in the future because, you know, there's a lot of things that happen later on that could have been prevented if Rhaenys did that, but nevertheless, she didn't. It doesn't matter. We got to prepare for the war that's going to come on between Team Green and Team Black. Acting across the board has been one of the biggest strengths to House of the Dragon, but I think the biggest standout performance from this finale is Emma D'Arcy. Rhaenyra as a character has been so interesting and complex, but I think this is the best episode for Emma D'Arcy playing the character. Since a large portion of this episode does rest upon the character's shoulders, from the impending threats from the Green, and the brutal toll that this takes on her pregnancy, that's made even more emotional when she sadly loses the child, and we see how much that changes both her and Daemon when everyone gathers for the kid's funeral. This section is pretty great. It's emotionally charged in many different ways. Of course, it is somber because it is a funeral, and we're seeing all the characters reel with so many different emotions with things on the horizon, especially once Sir Eric arrives and he gives Rhaenyra the crown and dedicates his life to her, and then we crown her Queen Rhaenyra, and pretty much anybody that objects to that is going to be roasted and murdered brutally by Daemon. We see that when he threatens the Kingsguard with Caraxes later on. When Otto does arrive to speak to Rhaenyra and Daemon at Dragonstone, I really like the parallels to the scene we saw prior in the season where him and Daemon were speaking on the bridge, even down to Rhaenyra arriving on Syrax to kind of negotiate things. This deal that Otto is trying to propose to Rhaenyra and Daemon as far as accepting Aegon's claim to the throne and then they'll get all this other stuff along the way, it was pretty wild. It was unfortunate that there wasn't a confrontation, much to Daemon's chagrin. Mostly it was thanks to the letter that Alicent wrote to Rhaenyra, because I suppose that we're still trying to attempt to make the Greens a bit more sympathetic. I mean, this isn't the only time in the episode where we kind of have a sympathetic version of events. I know that there's like an unreliable narrator to the books, but so far this season, we've had a lot more sympathy towards Team Green as opposed to Team Black, which I think is kind of odd, but that's just my opinion. Daemon has been one of my favorite characters all throughout Season 1. I think he's just a very interesting character to follow. He is a very complicated character at that, but I feel like we flipped the switch a little bit too early here with his character in the final episode. Starting out just kind of being irritated because Rhaenyra shows restraint and doesn't want to immediately burn everything and plunge themselves into a war, only for him to then start choking Rhaenyra when she tells him about the prophecy, the Song of Ice and Fire. I'm not sure how I feel about this. Of course, Daemon, he's not a great character as the books go on. He does some pretty questionable things along the way involving Rhaenyra, but I feel like we just flipped it too quickly, you know? It's not exactly a great look, but it will be interesting to see where that relationship continues to progress as the war is raging on and more events transpire to kind of transform their relationship. One of the big events is actually the end of this episode. What was great because his presence was sorely missed these last couple weeks was getting to see Corlys Velaryon. He is alive. It was kind of amusing seeing Rhaenys get him up to speed with all the events that he's missed because things have just gone to shit immediately. Your brother tried to take your throne. He got his head chopped off. Stuff like that. You know, the usual stuff. Plus, it was great to see him get out of bed and assist Rhaenyra to gather allies across the many various different houses who have sworn oaths in the past, even despite the uncertainty that they are going to go through with those oaths. I did like that Rhaenyra is taking charge now as queen and directing people to go to different places. Even if I am a little bit upset at Daemon after what transpired this episode, it was still pretty damn awesome seeing him go down and find Vermithor. We get to have this epic scene between him and the dragon. It wasn't a very long scene, but it still was a pretty cool scene, and we now have Vermithor on the side of Team Black when we do have the Dance of the Dragons. What had me excited and sad at the same exact time was Rhaenyra dealing out all of those different messengers. Of course, Jacaerys is going to go to the north. We're going to get Winterfell in Season 2. We're going to get to talk to Cregan Stark, which is pretty awesome. I'm excited to see Cregan Stark in Season 2 and who inevitably is going to be cast as Cregan Stark But the one I am more sad about is Luke going to Storm's End to speak to Boris Baratheon, just because I know what happens at Storm's End. So I was not looking forward to that trauma on my conscience, seeing it on live action. Almost immediately, once Luke and Arax get to Storm's End, the mood is extremely tense since we get a shot of Vhagar in the distance, which means Vhagar and Aemon beat them to Boris Baratheon. You can't miss Vhagar. Vhagar is absolutely monstrous, so it was very easy to spot him on the other side. Unfortunately, Aegon's side had a much better proposal than Rhaenyra's side did. The thing is, though, Aemon Targaryen, not a big fan of this character, but you can definitely tell he's going to continuously have that grudge because Luke took his eye all those years ago. And we do get to see just how angry he is when Luke shows up. The hatred has never really left. He still calls Luke Lord Strong, and he even reveals the sapphire where his eye once was and demands that Luke gives him an eye for his mother. So even now, Aemon is doing things to please his mother, Alicent. Even if I knew it was going to be a very extremely sad sequence seeing Luke get on the back of Arax and try and leave Storm's End, it still was an extremely riveting sequence watching Luke being chased by Aemon on Vhagar. It's very much a chase sequence. It's not a battle in any shape or form because Arax is way too small to fight a dragon like Vhagar, who is war-hardened and very old. This entire chase was so nerve-wracking. Even though I knew where it was going to conclude, I was still on the edge of my seat. Since they were capable of throwing in a few surprises along the way, I was not anticipating Arax's instincts kicking in and trying to actually fight Vhagar, and then Vhagar just completely disobeying Aemon's orders. Both dragons are disobeying their masters. I don't know if it was the old age that kicked in that caused Vhagar to disobey Aemon, but nevertheless, Aemon is upset because Vhagar comes out of nowhere and absolutely obliterates Arax and Luke. Both of them just completely torn to shreds as they descend from the air. And you can see that Aemon does have some regret. I don't know if necessarily it's regret because he accidentally killed Luke, or what's going to be on the horizon now because he killed Rhaenyra's son, because we do end off with Rhaenyra being visibly shaken up, getting the news that Luke is dead, and that's going to kick off the son for a son in next season. But that's the part I'm kind of frustrated about because, once again, it's just a misunderstanding. It's not that Aemon was actually actively trying to kill Luke. Aemon was trying to, I guess, toy with him, and then Vhagar got angry and did it of his own fruition, which is kind of annoying to me because they keep having these circumstances play out where Team Green doesn't look as evil, because both sides do pretty bad things. So I don't know why we try to change these things from the source material to try and sympathize with Team Green a bit more. Just a kind of weird observation that I've noticed, at least. But still, I think it was a pretty good finale all around, even despite some of the moments that frustrated me. It's going to be very exciting to see where we go with the season 2, because I think this is going to be the big kickoff point for the Dance of the Dragons, Blood and Cheese, Son for a Son. We're going to get to see Cregan Stark in season 2. I wonder who's going to play Cregan Stark. But it's been a very fun season for the first season for House of the Dragon. So make sure you share your thoughts down below. What'd you think of this finale? Did you like the finale? Did you not like the finale? Were you not a fan of some of the changes here to some of the source material from the book? Either way, show your thoughts down below in the comment section. It's part of the fun is having the conversation with you guys in the comment section down below. Thank you guys always share the reviews. I always do appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun talking about House of the Dragon. But if you do want to get more thoughts about me talking about Game of Thrones, I do reactions for every single episode of Game of Thrones over on my friend Larry's channel, Chili Boy Productions, which I will leave a link to below. We are about to start season 7 of that, so it's going to be kind of jarring going back to Game of Thrones, especially these seasons that are actually not pretty good from what I've heard after such an interesting, fun season of House of the Dragon. Anyways, thank you guys so much for checking the reviews. I always do appreciate it. Make sure to like on the video. Also, subscribe to the channel so there's update reviews, reactions, unboxings, and more. Next time, I'll see you guys later.